Why do the kindest people get hurt the most? Why is it that those with good intentions and gentle souls often find themselves betrayed or manipulated by the very people they trusted? It's a pattern so familiar it almost feels inevitable. A friend you defended turns their back on you. A lover you forgave 100 times leaves without explanation. A family member you sacrificed for dismisses your pain as weakness. And each time, you tell yourself it was bad luck, or perhaps your fault for caring too much. The world quietly trains us to suppress our anger, to bite our tongues, to be agreeable even when every fiber of our being screams for justice. From an early age, we're conditioned to believe that goodness is passivity. That virtue lies in endurance. That morality means being the one who absorbs harm and never returns it. We're taught that confrontation is aggression, that expressing anger makes us problematic, and walking away from toxic people is heartless. So we learn to stay quiet, to compromise, to rationalize the bad behavior of others as accidents, as exceptions, as things we somehow deserved. Look around and you'll notice a pattern. In modern society, certain emotions have been quietly outlawed, not by government decree, but by people. Anger is called toxic. Ambition is painted as ruthless. Assertiveness is mistaken for aggression. Even setting boundaries is branded as problematic. You're told to rise above it, to be endlessly understanding, to forgive what should be condemned. And in this environment where raw emotion is disregarded, what happens to the instincts that once kept you alive? They don't disappear, they go underground. The kind-hearted keep folding themselves smaller, and those who lie always seem to thrive. They climb the social ladder, seize influence, and command respect. They are unapologetic in their ruthlessness, wearing masks of charm and virtue, while quietly pulling the strings. And the more they take, the more the good suffer. But what if this isn't an accident? What if the very system that teaches you to be endlessly forgiving was designed to keep you powerless? What if the path to strength isn't in denying your anger, but in understanding it? Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology, left behind a simple, almost forgotten rule. A rule so psychologically liberating, it could make you emotionally untouchable. And once you hear it, you'll never see yourself, or the people around you, the same way again. Look closely at the stories we're told and you'll notice a pattern. The world endlessly romanticizes the image of the good person, the forgiving friend who turns the other cheek, the selfless lover who sacrifices his own happiness, the quiet worker who never complains, no matter how unjustly they're treated. Movies, books, songs, and even social media celebrate those who absorb pain, give endlessly, and never ask for anything in return. It's a role model wrapped in virtue, but one that slowly, quietly demands the death of the self. And without realizing it, most of us adopt this script. Carl Jung called it the persona, the mask we wear to be liked, to be approved of, to belong. It's not who you truly are, but who you believe the world wants you to be. A socially acceptable version of yourself, carefully crafted to avoid rejection and conflict. Over time, this persona becomes so convincing, you forget where it ends and where you begin. When was the last time you said yes when you meant no? Not because you wanted to, but because you were afraid of disappointing someone. How often have you stayed silent when something inside you screamed for honesty? How many times have you laughed at a joke you hated, agreed with an opinion you despised, or tolerated a boundary violation just to avoid being labeled difficult, unkind, or ungrateful? Quick pause. Do you think the world rewards the ruthless over the virtuous? Drop your take in the comments. I want to see what you experienced in life that shaped you the way you are. Each of these moments seems insignificant in isolation, but over months, years, and decades, they accumulate. Every act of self-denial plants a seed of quiet resentment. Every time you betray your own needs to preserve harmony, a small part of you dies, and before long, you find yourself drowning in invisible wounds, anxiety you can't explain, anger you're too ashamed to admit, exhaustion that sleep never fixes. The culture you live in doesn't just tolerate this pattern, it rewards it. It labels confrontation as aggression, anger as immaturity, and emotional boundaries as selfishness. It convinces you that being good means being endlessly accommodating, endlessly forgiving, endlessly selfless. That your worth depends on how useful you are to others, how little space you take up, and how rarely you demand anything for yourself. But here's the brutal truth. Predators love a willing victim. Manipulators, narcissists, and opportunists instinctively seek out those who have been trained to prioritize peace over self-respect. And the more you suppress your true feelings, the more vulnerable you become, not just to others, but to yourself. You start doubting your own instincts. You stop trusting your anger, your sadness, your fear, the very emotions designed to protect you. Carl Jung warned of this long before modern psychology caught up. He understood that behind the persona lies a shadow, a suppressed, hidden self filled with all the thoughts and feelings you've been told are unacceptable. And the more you deny it, the more power it gains over you, leaking out as chronic resentment, bitterness, and emotional exhaustion. But what if you didn't have to live this way? What if there was a rule, simple, ancient, and almost forgotten, that could free you from this quiet self-destruction? Jung had one, and it changes everything. Carl Jung argued that the greatest danger isn't the darkness in others, but the darkness you refuse to see in yourself. Your anger, envy, and desire for control. This is your shadow, the part of you that's suppressed to maintain a good image. The longer you ignore it, the more power it has over you. When you deny your shadow, you become an easy prey. While you try to be endlessly kind, others who embrace their darkness take what they want. The passive gets devoured by the aggressive, and you find yourself trapped in the same patterns. Jung's rule is simple. Never let the same pattern hurt you twice. The first betrayal may not be your fault, but the second time it's yours. Silence in the face of disrespect is a choice, not ignorance. This isn't about becoming cruel. It's about recognizing your own darkness so it doesn't control you unconsciously. Great leaders and thinkers like Marcus Aurelius and Jung understood this. They didn't fear their shadow, they embraced it. You're taught to fear your anger and ambition, but repressing them only leaves you vulnerable. Embrace your shadow, set boundaries, and stop being manipulated. Jung's rule isn't about being heartless, but about seeing clearly and never falling into the same trap again. There's a reason manipulators always seem to target the same type of person. Not the strongest, not the cruelest, but the kindest, the most agreeable, the ones who are terrified of conflict and desperate to be liked. You've seen it happen. Maybe you've lived it. That moment when someone crosses a line and instead of standing your ground, you hesitate. You tell yourself it's not worth the fight, that it's better to keep the peace. But deep down, you feel it. That uneasy churn in your gut, the quiet voice insisting something isn't right. And yet you stay silent. Manipulators know this about you. They can sense it the way wolves sense weakness in a herd. They test boundaries not with violence, but with small, seemingly harmless infractions. A backhanded compliment, a subtle guilt trip, a lie you weren't supposed to catch. And when you don't push back, when you laugh it off or pretend not to notice, you teach them something vital, that you'll tolerate it. And what you tolerate will only grow. It isn't always obvious. Manipulation often wears the mask of kindness, the excessive flattery designed to lower your guard. The favors offered not out of generosity, but to create unspoken debts. The guilt-tripping dressed as concern. I just thought you were different. After everything I've done for you. It's a psychological chess game, and if you've spent your life believing that being good means avoiding conflict, you were never taught how to play. Carl Jung warned of this. He argued that the people most vulnerable to manipulation are those who refuse to confront their own capacity for darkness. Because when you bury your anger, your resentment, your hunger for power, you project those forces onto others. You tell yourself that manipulation is something only bad people do, that anger is dangerous, that standing up for yourself makes you selfish. And in doing so, you become predictable, emotionally readable, easy to control. Think back. How many times have you ignored that gut feeling? How often have you seen the betrayal coming, but convinced yourself to give them one more chance? How many conversations have you left feeling confused, doubting your own memory, questioning your sanity, Because someone skillfully twisted your words or made you feel responsible for their behavior? That isn't a coincidence, it's a strategy. Manipulators thrive on your refusal to acknowledge your own shadow, because the person who won't admit they're capable of anger will never use it to defend themselves. The one who denies their desire for control will never seize it when it matters. The one who insists on being endlessly forgiving will always be the one most betrayed. But the moment you become aware of your own shadow, when you realize you too can lie, can manipulate, can desire power, you stop being predictable. You stop reacting in the way manipulators expect. You become unreadable, unsettling. The dynamic shifts, because now you can recognize the game, not just in others, but in yourself. You no longer mistake kindness for weakness or anger for evil. You understand both are tools, dangerous only when left unchecked, but necessary for survival. That awareness makes you immune, not because you'll never feel pain again, but because you'll never be caught unaware. You'll see the pattern forming, the flattery that feels too rehearsed, the apology laced with expectation, the guilt that isn't yours to carry. And when it happens, you won't explain it away. You won't swallow it to keep the peace. You'll confront it, not as a victim, but as someone who knows their own darkness, who isn't afraid to use it when the situation demands. That's how you stop being prey, not by becoming cruel, but by refusing to be blind. You see it every time someone apologizes for being too emotional, when what they really were was honest. Every time ambition is condemned as selfish, while mediocrity is rebranded as humility. Every time confrontation is replaced by vague subtweets and passive-aggressive comments. This isn't progress. It's a culture terrified of its own nature. Jung warned that a society which ignores its shadow doesn't become pure, it becomes sick. A collective neurosis takes hold, where authentic emotion is suppressed and inauthentic performance is rewarded. And when an entire culture pretends it no longer feels anger, envy, or the urge for power, those forces don't vanish. They metastasize in backroom deals, in anonymous cruelty, in performative activism designed not to solve problems, but to signal moral superiority. You've seen it. Influencer culture thrives on this contradiction. The smiling faces, the endless optimism, the carefully curated vulnerability that never risks anything real. But beneath the surface, there's constant manipulation. Manufactured outrage one day, performative apologies the next. It's a game of moral theater, not personal growth. And yet, this is the model you're expected to follow. Corporate virtue signaling works the same way. Companies flood your feed with campaigns about justice and equality while exploiting labor, evading taxes, and silencing dissent. It's not about integrity, it's about optics. And you're encouraged to play along. To believe that liking a post is the same as taking a stand, that suppressing your discomfort is a virtue, that silence in the face of manipulation is maturity. But the truth is, reclaiming your shadow isn't about becoming cruel. It's about becoming whole. It's about knowing you can be angry without losing control, that you can be ambitious without being ruthless, that you can confront injustice without apology. When you accept those darker impulses as part of yourself, you're no longer easy to manipulate. You stop seeking approval from systems designed to keep you small. You become emotionally unpredictable, a person capable of kindness, but not confined by it. That's what makes you impossible to control, not because you've abandoned goodness, but because you've made peace with your capacity for darkness. And in a world addicted to hollow virtue, the person who owns their shadow stands untouchable. You've spent your entire life being told what parts of yourself are acceptable, which emotions to show, which thoughts to hide, which instincts to pretend you don't have. But the truth is, every person alive carries a shadow, and yours has been with you from the start. The good news is you can reclaim it, not by destroying it, not by denying it, but by integrating it, by making peace with the parts of you you've been taught to fear. The first step is simple, though rarely easy. Acknowledge your uncomfortable emotions without judgment. The anger you swallow, the jealousy you bury, the small desires you dismiss because you think they make you a bad person. They don't. They make you human. And the moment you allow yourself to feel them fully without moralizing or making excuses, you take away their power to control you from the shadows. Second, begin noticing the patterns. You've been hurt before, and if you're honest, some of those wounds came from situations you saw coming. Maybe it was a friend who took advantage of your silence, a relationship where you gave more than you received, a job where your loyalty was used against you. These aren't random, they're patterns, and your shadow remembers them even when you pretend not to. Start paying attention to the moments where you say yes when your body screams no. Those are the clues. Third, practice assertive self-protection in small everyday moments. You don't need to start with dramatic confrontations. It can be as simple as saying, "I'm not okay with that," when someone crosses a line. Declining a favor you don't have the energy for. Correcting a lie told about you, even if it feels uncomfortable. Every time you do, you reinforce a truth your shadow already knows. You're allowed to exist without constantly managing other people's emotions. And finally, accept your darker impulses as part of being human, not something shameful. You'll feel envy, you'll want control, you'll imagine revenge, you'll crave recognition. None of these feelings make you a bad person. They make you whole. The goal isn't to act on every impulse, but to stop pretending they don't exist. Because when you own them, no one else can use them against you. In your friendships, this means setting boundaries without apology. In your relationships, it means being honest about your needs, even if it risks conflict. At work, it means refusing to be guilt-tripped into silence or overextension. And within yourself, it means finally being able to look in the mirror and see a complete person, light and dark, noble and flawed, kind and ferocious, without flinching. This isn't about becoming cruel. It's about becoming free. You've been taught to fear the parts of yourself you don't understand. The flashes of envy, the quiet, simmering anger, the impulse to say no, to draw a line, to walk away. Somewhere along the way, you were convinced that being a good person meant being agreeable, selfless, endlessly forgiving. But there's a cost to that kind of goodness, and it's often your peace, your dignity, your sense of self. Carl Jung called this disowned side of you the shadow. And if you felt drained, manipulated, or invisible, it's because you've left yours in the dark for too long. But here's the truth. You can reclaim it. You can integrate the shadow without becoming cruel, without losing your humanity. In fact, it's the only way to become whole. And it starts with 4 deceptively simple actions. The first is this: acknowledge your uncomfortable emotions without judgment. You don't need to justify why you're angry, explain away your envy, or soften your disappointment. Feel it. Let it rise. Notice what it wants to tell you. That anger might be a boundary you've ignored. That envy might reveal a part of you you've been denying. These emotions aren't flaws, they're messages. And the moment you stop labeling them as wrong, you begin to understand yourself on a level no one else can. Second, identify the patterns. Because whether you realize it or not, you've been here before. Betrayed by someone you trusted. Overlooked when you needed support. Silenced when you should have spoken. These aren't accidents. They're signs of unaddressed patterns repeating in your life. Start asking yourself, where do I keep getting hurt? What kinds of people drain me? In what moments do I betray myself? Awareness is the first step to breaking the loop. Third, practice assertive self-protection in small, ordinary moments. It's not about sudden, dramatic transformations. It's about the quiet power of saying no without apology. Correcting someone when they misrepresent you, refusing to carry emotional weight that isn't yours. Each time you do, you teach your shadow that it doesn't need to hide, that it can stand beside you without shame. And finally, accept your darker impulses as part of being human, not as evidence of your failure. You will feel jealousy, you will crave power, you will imagine scenarios where you get even. And that doesn't make you broken, it makes you honest. The goal isn't to act on every impulse, but to stop pretending they don't exist. Because when you face them, they lose their power to control you from the background. In your friendships, this means choosing honesty over politeness when it matters. In relationships, it means naming your needs and standing by them. At work, it means protecting your time, your values, your peace. Integrating your shadow isn't about becoming ruthless. It's about becoming untouchable in the ways that matter most. Strong, clear, and fully alive in your own skin. The world isn't kind to the endlessly kind. You've seen it. The people who give and give, always expecting nothing in return, only to find themselves overlooked, betrayed, or exploited. It's a painful reality. Kindness alone won't protect you. But there's a truth buried beneath this suffering. It's not your kindness that makes you vulnerable. It's your unwillingness to confront your own darkness. Jung's rule echoes in the distance. Never be hurt by the same pattern twice. You felt the sting of betrayal, the ache of being used, the weight of your own silence in moments you should have spoken up. Now the key isn't to reject the kindness that defines you, but to become emotionally untouchable by embracing the full spectrum of who you are, including the parts you've tried to hide. The world respects those who know their own darkness, the ones who have faced it, understood it, and learned how to master it. These people don't harden their hearts. They learn to bar their teeth when it matters. They protect themselves, not with false softness or empty niceties, but with the quiet strength that comes from knowing exactly who they are and what they're capable of. In a world that feeds on the gentle, the wise learn to bare their teeth when it matters. If this video made you think differently or question something you once believed, hit that like button and subscribe.